Hello and welcome to the third episode of Next Generation Volleyball. And our focus today will be on contact. So, as a quick review, our first episode we talked about tactics. And what we tried to emphasize and focus on was to get the easy ones first. Second episode was acceleration. And we tried to talk to you about the importance of maintaining good core discipline. And then the third one today, as you can guess, contact. So again, the first one, tactics, what we did before the offensive contact occurs. The second episode is acceleration, what we do after offensive contact and before our defensive contact. So logically, third episode today, contact, what we do when we actually touch the volleyball. And This particular episode, I fear, is going to be a very difficult one for anybody that's played the game for a length of time. I want you to know that I'm not crafting this instructional video, in any kind of whimsical fashion. I've put a considerable amount of thought, research, time into creating this video, and it's frankly a very innovative look at how to play the game of volleyball on the defensive end. Innovative to such an extent that it's going to be difficult for probably almost everyone watching. You're going to struggle, I'm going to guess. And I can't help that, at some level. I just have to call them as I see them. So what we've done is we basically just tore apart everything. We discarded every fundamental of how to play volleyball on the defensive end and try to rebuild this dynamic in a way that makes some sense. So I think the first thing that we really need to do is talk about the machine. And let's talk about some specifications of the machine, of the human body, the machine of the human body. So I've already shared with you two specs. The first one is that we're good at seeing motion. We talked about that in the tactics on how to play on the outdoor game. And in acceleration, we talked about how human movement, I should probably redefine human movement in the second episode as gross or large-scale human movement, not articulated or a fine motor skill movement. But large-scale movement is always both initiated and terminated in our core. So other specifications that we probably should need to know about. First one being that we have the most hand-eye coordination on our center line. If I have buttons on my shirt, right in front of our buttons. And you can see that, you can tell that, for instance, an artist at an easel is typically going to be working right in front of them. They're not going to be over here. If they're working on the sky over here, they're going to step over and put that in front of them, working on their center line. You can see an auto mechanic wrenching right in front of them, if they can. Obviously, a lot of times they're like that. A bricklayer is going to be working right in front of them. A surgeon right in front of them. A dentist is going to be do their work right on their center line. So our maximum, my suggestion is our maximum area of hand-eye coordination is on our center line. Number 3, we have the greatest articulating coordination at our fingertips. And as the movement travels up our arm to our shoulder into our core, we lose ever so slightly at each step our ability to have fine motor control. For instance, an artist is not going to be working by moving their core or their back or their shoulders. They're going to be using their fingertips and their wrist to make their paintings. They're not going to be painting like this. They're going to be painting like this. A person working on a car that's taken off a nut with a wrench does not take the nut off like this. Takes it off using their shoulder and elbow primarily. Anything, the closer we can get to our fingertips, the greater we have control. So that's the second specification. The third one that is important today We have stereoscopic vision. What that means, okay, I'll share a story real quickly. Perhaps the most frightening thing that ever happened to me as any kind of an athlete on the ball field was as a little leaguer, a screaming line drive coming right at my head. And I remember this like it was just yesterday. I had so much trouble tracking that ball, and I never understood. I was actually embarrassed that I had so much trouble with it because it was a can of corn right at me, right? But I couldn't track it, and I had a lot of trouble, and it scared the living daylights out of me. I can still see that ball humming at me, no spin. It was just a 12-year-olds probably can't hit the ball that hard, but this ball was as hard as a 12-year-old could hit it. So the reason I had trouble with that ball is the same reason even today you'll see if you tune into a Major League Baseball Follies highlight kind of a video, you'll always see an outfielder running to a line drive that goes over their head because that line drive coming straight at them, we can't track because we have stereoscopic vision. And what that means is as a moving object is coming towards us, if we have an angle on it, we can detect the change in angle between our two eyes. Our brain is actually capable of this, and thereby track the ball and understand its vector or its speed and location. This is why, for instance, train crossings can be so dangerous. We're very comfortable with our stereoscopic vision, and we recognize that we're very, very good at tracking moving objects. It's something we do all the time, and we're innately efficient at it. Suddenly, we're at a train crossing, and all that's out the window because we got no angle on this train coming at us, and it's huge, and we have no perspective about how big a train is. So we are completely baffled at both its speed and location. Obviously, that's a dangerous combination, and it sadly leads to a lot of disasters with people thinking they know where the train is, and they don't, and on it comes. So, as an aside, don't mess with train crossings. You don't know where the train is. You may think you do, but you don't. But back to the volleyball court, what this means is we're going to be better at tracking the speed and location of a ball as it travels with an angle towards us. If they're coming straight at us, we don't see it well. I'm going to bring this ball at you. This is not exactly a perfect analogy, but as you see, it's hard to notice where this ball is. All we notice is that the size of the ball is changing. So when a ball is coming straight at us, that's our only perspective. From a 2D view, all we've got is the change in size of the ball as it comes at our face. We have no angle on it, so we can't really tell its speed when it's coming straight at us. So when you put all these specifications together, this is what we have reconstructed as the most positive, and I'll define positive as efficient, controlled, and coordinated. The most positive way to contact the ball is how we're going to now describe. So if you remember in the second video, we talked about ready position. I'm not going to go over that again, but we did touch on where to hold our hands. We're going to get on into that now. We're going to put our hands here for a very good reason. Let's just do a progression. As the ball is coming at us, if it's hard driven, meaning not deflected, not a shot, coming at us, our best chance to dig that ball is with our open hand, cupped to protect our thumb, and we're just going to try to pop it up. Interestingly, at least on the indoor court, 1 out of 3 defensive touches from our stats is one-handed. 1 out of 3. And yet, never in my life have I ever had a coach instruct me on how to contact a ball with one hand. I've never seen a video about it. It's really an interesting idea. Why have we never taught this? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But we're going to teach that right here and now. So we're going to cup our hand, and essentially it's just like we contact the ball with our attack. We're going to contact it the very same way. As the ball is screaming at us, that's all we do. And what I've found is that we're going to try to pop it up. So we're going to be using this motion a lot. I found that I'm better with my right. I'm a right-handed swinger, so I have a better touch with my right hand when I do a one-handed contact. With my left hand, it's not quite as good. But on this topic, a real easy drill to do is just this. And then also bounce it off a wall. That's going to very much help you develop that touch. So that, again, 1 out of 3 contacts on the defensive end are one-handed. Let's train ourselves on how to do that. Okay, so the progression is, here we are, ready position, ball comes, screams at us. All we have time to do is get a hand up. That happens, right? Well, there you go. This is how we contact it. This is how we contact it, straight up. I found that the ball straight at our chest, that's a really tough one. So understand that this is actually easier than this. As we start to develop our skills, we're going to be able to contact that one straight at us. But believe me, this is tough. This takes a lot of practice to really put that together. What we want to do is here and then come up with it. And usually that's just shanks off of us. And again, don't get frustrated. That ball right in this area, that's a tough one to dig. Just accept that. Work on it, but accept that's a tough one. Okay, this is a bit easier. So here's the progression. Ball comes screaming at us, we just get a hand up. If we have time, we're going to turn. And the reason we turn, because we are better coordinated along our center line. So we want to contact the ball on our center line. Thusly, if we're looking this way. So here comes the ball screaming at us. We touch it if we can here. We turn if we can and touch it here. So we're just going to turn. Just going to turn. We're still only going to use one hand. We're going to go to 2 hands when we have time to move the leg. Go to 2 hands, we go to 2. We move our leg, we go to 2 hands. And now if we have chance, we're going to start passing. So this is where this video is going to start getting very difficult for people that have been playing the game a long time. Because this point, we're going to tell you, I'd never, ever recommend shuffling, and I'm never going to recommend ever passing a ball in front of you like this back to the pass setter. We're done with this. From what I've seen, shuffling doesn't work, and passing here doesn't work because we don't have the perspective, we have stereoscopic vision, we cannot track the ball accurately. So, let's back up a little bit. And the reason that we're not shuffling, because in the end, what happens is we shuffle and shuffle. We're ready to play the ball, and now we start to do this. My friend Danny used to call this the divining rod. So we're playing here. What does this lead to? Shank. I've seen so many videos of players tilting their arms, trying to get a handle on this play. Shank, shank, shank. And to me, it seems incredibly obvious. This is a failed fundamental dynamic. We need to stop teaching this because it doesn't work. And it just leads to a lot of frustration to our athletes. And I don't see no reason to teach it anymore. And I know that's hard to hear. I'm not going to ever recommend a shuffle. I'm not going to recommend the divining rod. We need to stop that. So instead, let's go back to our progression. Ready position, hand, turn, step with the second hand. Now we get to the second thing that's very difficult for those that have played the game a lot. We're going to recommend curling that ball with bent elbows. One of the most interesting dogmas I found at the fundamentals level of defensive volleyball is this dogmatic dedication, I could say, to stiff elbows in the divining rod. And it absolutely makes no sense in any way if you just stop and think about it for even a second. Because we're going to contact that ball roughly here. right? And this articulating joint is fabulously positioned to be right next to the contact point. And we really need all the articulation we can, because that ball is coming at it either at speed or with a knuckle float kind of a thing, or both. And it's really hard to get our arms in position in time with positive contact if we can't bend the very closest joint to the contact. So we need to bend our elbows. Sorry, folks. I know this is tough. I've already destroyed shuffling. I've told you don't play the ball on your mid in front of you towards the setter. And number 3, bend your elbows. So what we're recommending is first progression, second progression, third progression with bent elbows. And what we're going to do is curl that back towards the setter. We know where the setter is because that setter has been in that same spot every time for the last 10,000 plays. We know where that setter is. What we don't know with certainty is where the ball is. So that's why we're going to recommend to our athletes, face the ball. As the ball comes flying at you, face the ball. We know where the setter is and we know where the net is. Face the ball. Curl, bend our elbows, and control that ball right here. At this point, I think we'll talk a little bit more about the difficulties of shuffle and what that has led to in this game. One of the things that I see, it didn't used to be taught when I was first playing in the 80s, but is now seemingly more often taught as a default fundamental, which is rolling your shoulders. And the reason I believe we are now teaching to roll your shoulders is because from the angle you can see, what happens is when you roll your shoulders, it actually brings your elbows closer to you. Notice, boom, you get an extra, 4, 5, 6 inches? And the reason we're teaching it is because as we shuffle, we have lost our stereoscopic vision. The ball's coming straight at our face. We misread the ball's location, and invariably it tends to come high up towards our chest. We get what I call handcuffed. So up comes that ball, and as a Band-Aid fix for our inability to track it, we roll our shoulders back, giving us another 4 inches or so. So now this is being taught, like this is the standard way to pass a volleyball. We're rolling our shoulders. Well, this brings me to our next concept in how to contact a volleyball. If you remember in the first video, we spoke of get the easy ones first. In the second video, we spoke about core control. In this video, the word of the day, simplify. Simplify, simplify. What we want to do is teach our athletes to move only the joints and muscles that are absolutely required in order to have positive contact with the ball. For instance, one of the things that I've seen taught a lot is shuffle to the ball and use your calves. Use your calves to pass. I mean, not everybody teaches that, but that's just ridiculous nonsense. Why are we using our calves? It's not like we need more power. My goodness, just with my arms, I can launch that ball across into the stands, no problem. We don't need power, we need control. And the way you get control is you minimize all movement that's extraneous, you eliminate anything that's not necessary, and only move those joints that are absolutely required. So, when we are passing the volleyball, we're going to curl it back, bending here in the elbows. And what I have found, what I do, is as it's approaching to me, is I tend to stay behind a little bit further and then step into it at the very last moment. Because I can, because I have an accurate tracking mechanism, I'm seeing it well, and I know where it's going to be, and I'm giving myself a little bit of cushion. Because if it does curve back towards me, if it's a knuckleball, kind of that hard knuckleball that some people serve, it might actually do that at the last moment, curve back towards me. Well, I'm prepared for that. I'm going to stay back. I'm going to stay back. Excuse me. I'm going to stay back. I'm going to wait and wait. And at the very last moment, I'm going to take a little bit of a step, close that last 6 inches, curl it to my setter. That's it. I see at this point, maybe we'll talk about how to hold your hands. I've seen so many videos where coaches are talking ad nauseum about this way to hold your hands, all the different ways. I think none of that matters. I've seen crazy stuff. People hold their hands all kinds of weird ways. I started playing in the 70s, and I saw some guys and they could pass the ball. Like, oh my gosh. In my experience, there's zero connection between how you hold your hands and the quality of your passing ability. No connection at all. So I would disregard all of that. If you are currently passing the ball in some weird and crazy way, keep it. Doesn't matter. If you were just learning, there's a lot of people that think that keeping your thumbs together is important. Perhaps it is. Probably a good idea. If you're just learning, do something that keeps your thumbs together. That's all I'm going to say about it. Doesn't matter. It's just not important. Anyway, so as we pass the ball, we're going to maintain good core control. We're going to be ready to move back if it really curves back. But primarily, we're going to step into it and curl it back to our setter. You're going to find that you have a good side and a less good side. I'm a right-handed batter in baseball, so that's what I suspect I'm better at this side. But I've learned to pass the ball on my left, too. It does happen. You're going to have it both sides good. But you're going to find that you have a better or stronger side. And that's how it is. So again, here's our progression. Ready position, hands here. Pop it up this way. Turn if we can, pop it up. Take the step down here and start to track it if we have time. Never shuffle because we lose our ability to have stereoscopic tracking. Okay, let me touch again a little bit about why we're not going to shuffle, because we feel that it's very destructive to good and accurate passing. All right, so shuffling, what it tends to do is results in passes up high, right in here. And that's obviously difficult to control. So if you ever go to a volleyball game, especially if they're really, really good, Division I or national team level, what you'll see is a lot of the passes are going to be to their side. They're going to do this. So as the ball comes at them, they step back and pass. Ball comes at them, step back and pass. Well, that's essentially what we're teaching. So if you really get a end line view of the best, they're already doing what we're suggesting. They're just not doing it in a realistic or real way or a defined way. It's pretty haphazard because they're constantly being handcuffed. The ball is constantly coming up to their chest. And they're having to get out of the way and pass. So here it is. Here's what happens. You're in this ready position. Server's ready. They take that stupid jab step. Now they've lost their core control. Ball comes at them, usually too high. They shuffle to it, and now they're in trouble. And here's where the passing occurs. Hips are forward, total loss of core control, and this is essentially what happens. We're passing the ball like this all the time. No core control, and it causes a lot of problems on the volleyball court. So I'm going to again suggest, please stop shuffling. Face the ball. Retain your stereoscopic perspective on tracking and curl. Curl. If you do those things, you're going to have a lot more success on the volleyball court. All right. In the previous video, we spoke a little bit about emergency touches. In other words, why we don't roll or dive and what we do instead. So we've spoke a little bit about one-hand touch, how to pop the ball up with one hand. We really want to help encourage you all to practice this. Practice one-hand touches. Use that hand. Also, I'm not cupping the ball. I should be cupping. I want you to practice cupping your thumb, because if you leave it hanging out there, you can get hurt. So cup that thumb. You want to see that. And so for a play that's in front of us or to our side, that's an emergency play, as we said, we don't dive. So what we're going to do, really simple, and I guess I'll keep the ball in my hand here. Really simple, emergency step, 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 retaining core control, and there. And you can reach really low. And in my experience, when we dive, in order to dive, you have to take a little bit of a stutter step. So you really have to kind of bring that second foot in to go with a stutter step, and that costs us time. So if we really practice on just running through the ball, taking good solid steps, small steps at first, lengthening our steps as our speed increases, leaning down, pop. And your range can be tremendous doing this. And it seems pretty simple, because it is. No diving, I'm sure everybody that's my age has a scar on the bottom of their chin when they first learned how to dive. That's gone, none of that anymore. I got all kinds of scars here from rolling. We don't need to do that. Run through the ball, just run through the ball. It's so easy, and it works really well. Outdoors, it's also very effective. And it's good to stay on your feet, because you got to turn and attack. So I always preferred to stay on my feet as much as I could. The only time I ended up diving outdoors is when the net became a factor. So I kind of have to somehow stop my momentum. So I would do, that's about the only time I dive. Now indoors, I'll be honest with you, you may need to still have to learn how to dive, because there is one kind of play that happens. Often it's going to be a ricochet, say a hard-driven ball off of your next-door neighbor digger, and it's coming past you here. You don't have time to do anything but just dive at it. So the dive happens to the side this way. I'm not going to do it because I don't have enough room here. That is actually a legitimate use of a dive. And in fact, in our first video, we talked about where the offhand blocker plays defense, the weak side blocker perhaps is a better word, how he plays or she plays defense one hand from the net. And there's balls that are zinging along the net. That happens pretty regularly. You may need to learn how to dive for those, and also it could be coming to your other side too. You don't have a lot of time there for balls rattling around the block and coming back at you. So you may that weak side blocker may need to dive once in a while. FYI. Okay, so back to the business at hand. Ready position, turn, right hand, second hand, and now we're curling, staying away from the ball, stepping to it at the last moment. And it's pretty dang easy. But you're still going to have to pass the ball that's coming straight at you. It's going to happen. We just can't get out of the way of everything. And so let's talk about that. What I see happening too often is players are shuffling, like I said, and the ball ends up too high. And so when we pass, this is what I see, not what I recommend. What I see is we're contacting the ball too high, either primarily, again, because the ball is coming too high at us. We're not judging it well. So what we want to do, if at all possible, is to keep that ball low. If we're actually passing in front of us towards the net, straight ahead, we want to pass it right here, right by below our core, right at our thigh level. And that ball should never travel higher than the top of the net. Now, I don't think anybody's ever said that before, but if you start practicing passing from here, where all you think about is just make sure the ball does not go higher than the net and actually has an arc at some point before it gets to the setter. In other words, we're not shooting line drives at the setter. It has an arc, you will find that you will be forced to maintain good core control because that's going to force you to be down here passing that ball. We want nice and low. And as the speed of the ball increases, this is actually when you're going to have to learn how to do this, is jump serves that come straight at you. You don't have time to get out of the way. And you're going to, let's not get caught in the weeds on this. You're going to learn how to do this naturally. But as that ball happens, what we're going to do is curl again. We're going to be passing here. And the reason is simple. When that ball's traveling 80 miles an hour off a jump serve, we have to somehow remove energy from that ball. We can't be shooting that straight at the setter. No way. We're not capable of cradling it enough. So we have to curl it a little bit, give it some loft, and hope it comes down on the setter's head. We honestly want to minimize the distance the pass travels. The most effective way to control the pass is to minimize its trajectory. So if we're shooting passes way high, even from the side here, that's bad because it's too hard to control. So that would be something that's sort of again, another canary in the coal mine. If we are able to control the height of our passes and keep them as low as possible, ideally below net level, then we know that we're having good core control and we're minimizing the distance the ball travels, which makes it easier to control it. Okay, I know I'm throwing a lot of very difficult ideas at you here. The not shuffling and the bending the elbows, that's going to be hard for a lot of people to stomach, I guess. But as I said, this video is something that I've been thinking about for a very, very long time, about 40 years. So I'm not sharing with these ideas just, as I said, whimsically. This is something that we have been investigating for a very long time. All right, I'm gonna pull up the board. We're gonna review a few ideas. Hang with me here a sec.